Welcome again, race fans, to another edition of the C&J Speedway Review. As always, I am Chris Burns from the Loki and Jabroni Show. You can catch us now live streaming every Tuesday night. Big changes happening in the show, so you guys don't miss it. It's Tuesday nights now. Across the screen and feeling mean, his name is Corey Huffnagle. Corey, how are we doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. Now that we move to the round of 12, it's going to be very interesting to see, who's going to advance to the round of 8. And all I could just tell you is I'm really looking forward to Talladega this weekend. One of my favorite tracks. And if you guys have never seen a race at Talladega, it's literally undescribable. I can't even tell you in a lot of words, but it's going to be a really fun weekend. And I'm really looking forward to it.
Absolutely. It's never a quiet time at Talladega.
No.
It's always fast racing, 200-plus miles per hour. It's always door-to-door. Of course, you always have to be worried about the –
Yeah.
And the big one at Talladega is unlike any other big one, even Daytona. Every Daytona says, oh, the big one. No, Talladega, those crashes will knock you on your ass sideways.
Yeah.
In the week that was, we didn't see it too much controversy this week. Not a lot of penalties came out. For your opinion about the uproar that people think Jimmy Johnson sort of got a pass on a pit stop penalty.
So I've only seen this probably a few times within the last few days, and I think they said that the crew guys kind of pitted outside the box, and quite frankly, I'm still trying to understand what NASCAR made that call, and they said, if you didn't do this, then there's no penalty, and then if the car is over the line, and if you pit, then it's tail into the longest line or one lap penalty whatsoever. But the one thing that kind of got me kind of odd was the part where he was leaving the pits, and then of course they had to stop because they had to tighten one lug nut, and then of course there's that rule if you get caught with one unsecured lug nut in post race, then your crew chief can get a fine or maybe a suspension or two, and then of course if the tire comes off, then your crew chief gets a 4-week suspension and whatnot. But I thought that not controversial, but I thought the pit stop was kind of odd, but then yet again, I'm still trying to figure that rule out and stuff.
I know part of the thing that I had seen and heard during the race that he was outside of his pit box.
Yeah.
One of the things is that every week, if you see someone go outside of the pit box and get repairs, they are called back to do a pass-through penalty.
Yeah.
Or if it's on a caution, you are thrown to the tail end of the longest line. Neither of these things happened to Jimmy Johnson. There are drivers that were upset about it. There were spotters that are upset about it, and fans are going nuts about it.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see it this week. It's been since Sunday, so now this is Wednesday, 3 days. I haven't heard anything come out of NASCAR about this. Do you think we're going to hear something about it?
They did issued a statement. I think it was so they did issue a statement on the non-call of the pit stops. So they said that Jimmy Johnson pulled out of his pit stop after a routine service, but then was stopped and discovered a loose lug nut on one of his wheels. And the crew member, I can't pronounce that one, but rectified the problem on Johnson's car. So NASCAR statement said, we want to make sure that it's safe on the racetrack. We like to give teams the benefit of the doubt if we can, especially when it comes to something that might create an unsafe situation. And this is what Scott Miller, the director of NASCAR, ended up saying on Wednesday or yesterday, whatever it was.
Okay. So basically they made a statement that was a non-statement, which didn't overly surprise me.
Right.
Lately it seems that they're trying to be very hands-offish, if you will. Of course, we're saying this 3 weeks after they were assessing speeding penalties for 0.6 miles per hour over the pit road speed. I'm hoping that after this season and in the seasons forward that maybe there's a little more consistency in the rule book. This isn't the XFL, guys. Have one rule book, keep the rules. Every year we find these new rules, these new addendums to the rules. And race fans that I know who just, you know what, I give up. I'm not watching the product anymore. I can do without. Of course, they still follow. They want to see how their favorite guy is doing, if he's even still racing. There are a lot of guys who I know who've given up 10 years ago, and the field has changed quite a bit. The way the rules are changing and the way that we are told, expect the unexpected, because this might not be here tomorrow. That's kind of, to me, as I'm staring at the television watching playoff baseball, you know, the rules in baseball are the same every single year. If something changes, you know about it months in advance. In NASCAR, you know about it.
Yeah.
There has to be some consistency, not only in developing the rules and telling the people and the drivers of the rules, but as far as enforcing the rules too. I've watched many drivers over the years be outside of their pit box, have the car be in kind of sideways, diagonal, if you will. They get penalized, they're thrown to the back of the line. Jimmy Johnson, on this penalty, I thought he should have been penalized. It really didn't affect his outcome too much because he did have a decent car.
Yeah.
Going to the tail end of the longest line was not going to hurt Jimmy Johnson in this race. Now, he did not win the race, but I don't think it really affected his overall finish. It happened early enough in the race where he could have battled back. Just real quick, in your opinion, if I may ask, I know we're talking about the pit box rule and the pit road rule. Lately, a lot of the penalties that have been going on pit road seem to be with the lug nuts, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
Too many men over the wall. Obviously, the speeding penalties at some tracks are lax, and at some tracks we got the 0.6 miles per hour over.
Yeah.
I don't want to say in my day, because as you started watching racing, you raced back to the line at the yellow.
Yeah.
Was a little bit higher, and there was no exit speed.
Yeah.
You beat feet and you got out of pit road. The pit road speed limit, or do you think it's kind of wussifying NASCAR just a bit?
I mean, if you think about it, you know, of course, you know, there was a day when, you know, there was like literally no speed limit on pit road, and it was like, you know, very dangerous, you know, whenever those crew guys came over the wall, you know, servicing a pit stop, and then here comes the car at like, I don't know, coming down from like 190 and then goes all the way down to like maybe 80 or something, and then goes into the pit stop, makes a pit, and then comes out speeding on pit road. And there has been times where, you know, there has been crew members that were injured. There were actually one that died back in like 1990 and so forth.
Yep.
And I mean, I think with like, you know, the pit road rules, like as long as everybody on pit road is safe, I really think, you know, NASCAR is doing a good job on that. I mean, you know, do I like the pit road speeding rules? Yes. Do I like everything about it? You know, there has been some rules where I'm kind of like, you know, kind of question about, then at the same, it's safe, you know, if it's a good call or whatever, you know, I think that's what NASCAR is going to do. I mean, I remember when I came in, and you know, I came into NASCAR like probably like 2 years after, you know, they instituted the rule, like, you know, where, you know, they used to race at the yellow flag, but now that's not done anymore. And actually, if anybody, you know, wants to know why they don't do that, was you go back to 2003 at New Hampshire. And just to clarify this, so that was when Dale Jarrett spun out. He sat on the front stretch whatsoever. And then here comes all these cars that were racing back to the yellow flag. So the reason why they did that was because they were making deals back in the day saying like, oh, like, you know, oh, if I give you this lap back, you know, you can give me a lap back and so forth. And I think that was the reason why that NASCAR said, you know what, we're not going to race back to the yellow anymore, because if you guys keep on doing this, then, you know, why would we let you?
Right, and if you remember one other thing about that race, the back end of his car was on fire.
Yeah.
This is before you had to, obviously now if the car's on fire, you get the hell out of it. But
right
now they make you stay in the car until the help truck arrives,
yeah.
The team comes. Back then, you could get out of your car. Well, the way his car was parked, there's only one way to go for him, and that was backward toward the track. But you have 42 other cars coming around at lap speed. There's nowhere for him to go. Plus, especially not how his car was, it was where his car was that made it even more dangerous. Because you come out of that whip in turn 4, and if everybody's battling for the line,
yeah,
if they went 3 wide, that car gets taken out. Potentially Dale Jarrett gets taken out.
Yeah.
I understood freezing the field for yellow. The pit road speeds, yes, it used to be a show. I'm not going to say the other word, but it was a show back in the day to try to fight your way onto pit road. And there was some gentlemanly maneuvering, oh, I see he's going in. I'm going to creep back and what. Other times you just barreled in, stopped, got your service, and got the hell out.
Yeah.
So much better over the years. Whereas back in the day, a 17-second pit stop, pit stops from over the weekend, and they were 4 tires and fuel out, sometimes a chassis adjustment. So much like everything else advances as you walk through this sport over the years, this is one of those things where I'm kind of on the fence. Have pit road speed limits. I don't think they should be as low as they are, especially on a green flag stop around the whip, say at Talladega, and you're topping out, coming out of that corner at pit road speed is 65 miles an hour. You only have X amount of space to whoa your car down from 165. Physics is going to take over. That car is going to the momentum wants that car to continue forward. You're trying to stop that momentum. Especially at Talladega and Daytona, you get a lot of speeding penalties on pit road.
Yeah.
If they were to up the speed limit, I think we wouldn't have as many problems.
Yeah, and there has been, sometimes like whenever like cars are coming down to pit road, I mean, you're going from 190 and the pit road speed limit is like 55. It's going to be really hard for you to slow that car down. And quite frankly, that becomes kind of questionable whether if you didn't speed past pit road or if you got it right on time and stuff. Because just so you remember, during the green flag pit stops, they're constantly just jamming on the brake, and the next thing you know, they'll see tire smoke because they're hitting the brakes so much because they don't want to get caught speeding on pit road. A couple weeks ago at Las Vegas, I don't know if you remember, but Noah Gragson, he came down to pit road the first time, and the next thing you know, he gets caught speeding on pit road. So then, he has to come down again for a pass-through penalty. Next thing you know, boom, gets penalized for speeding again. So the next thing you know, it was a stop-and-go penalty. So I think, with cars coming down pit road, I mean, yeah, I see a lot during the green flag pit stops. I mean, yeah, it's hard, to get that car wound down from 190 to 55. And, you have to do all you can, because, if that tack hits red, then boom, you're speeding.
Right. And I've watched, they showed some of the in-car telemetry over the last few weeks of the cars coming down, and they're not in the car. They're not going into the red.
Right.
Obviously, at all of these speed traps, what do they call them? There's the markers, the 14 markers around the track. Getting them with these radars, and it's gotten to the point where now, and the crew screaming, he was in the green. He was in the green.
Yeah.
We weren't speeding. We got you speeding. We caught you at marker 14. Well, that's great, but which is basically NASCAR approved, is showing that I'm not speeding. I have a good case, but the penalty then is done and gone. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
So let's go talk about the week that was. 2 great races at Charlotte this week. We started with the Xfinity Series on Saturday. Heck of a race with the tremendous not newcomer. He filled in for Junior before, but Junior's eventual replacement, Alex Bowman, comes away with the win. Blaney, and he came in third. Blaney ran a fantastic race, but Alex Bowman was just...
I was not really surprised at this at all. And this kid is really talented. He's going to win a lot of races, in the near future. And I think picking him for Hendrick Motorsports, I thought that was a really good pick for him. And just so you remember, guys, if you remember last year when he filled in those races for Junior, I mean, he did a lot better than what he and Jeff Gordon did last year. But the way that he raced on Saturday night, I thought it was perfect. I mean, this kid is going to have a bright future, and I think he's going to win a lot of races in his career. But I was really happy for him, and I knew he was going to win. But I actually want to go back to the race on Saturday night. So not only that he was, leading and going for the win, but there was actually the race where, you had some guys that were trying to get in that top 8 for the next round, and you had guys like Brendan Gaughan and Ryan Reed just battling it out for the win, well, not for the win, for position, to get to the next round. And there were some parts in the race where, Brendan tried to go on that high line, and then of course, they had that PJ1 substance on the high groove, just to make the top groove a lot better. Brendan tried that a few times, and his car got loose, a few laps in the race and stuff. And then, of course, his teammate Brandon Jones was going to try and pass Reed, to get the spot. And then, of course, if Gaughan would have passed another car, or if Jones would have passed Reed, then it would have came down to a tiebreaker, and then Gaughan would have made it in on the tie whatsoever. But I tell you what, like I said, the bottom half between like 10th and like 12th or whatever it is, like I knew those guys were not going to move, because like those were the guys that were kind of, lucky to make it in on points. But now it's going to be very interesting to see how, the guys from the top 8 to the points lead now, how those guys are all going to battle for the championship. But now this is going to be the deciding factor of who's going to be that are going to make it to Homestead in November.
Right, and I really didn't see any surprises in this race. It's all the usual suspects, some of the up-and-comers. As I'm going down the list, surprise was William Byron coming in with a 16th place finish, because I think we both thought he was going to do exceedingly well in this race, and just didn't have the stuff at the end.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised about that too. I mean, like, this kid has been pretty good on the mile and a half. I mean, of course, 16th, could have done better, but, I would probably say now that he's going into the next round, this kid really has to step it up. I mean, I would say that,
Absolutely.
you got 2 mile and a halves, coming up, and then you got Phoenix. So I would say that, I would watch him at one of the mile and a half racetracks, because I think him and 3 of the junior motorsports guys, I think this is going to be, those 3 guys are going to go to the championship, and then, you're going to see someone from Stewart Haas or Childress or Gibbs or anyone else, take that final 4th spot.
Well, as we normally do, we usually talk about surprises, and then we said there really wasn't any real surprises coming out of that. The PJ1 substance that helped with the grip after the weather, complaining about it both on Saturday night and on Sunday during the Cup race. Why they want to do it? You don't want a green racetrack, and helps with grip. But there were guys like Blaney and then going forward to Kurt Busch, who had his own set of problems on Sunday.
Yeah.
To a lot of the guys just saying that the substance was really messing with their handling. I'm not sure I like the idea of using the substance.
I mean, I know that NASCAR wants to make the racing a lot more exciting, and I know they want to make that top groove a lot better, but if you have that PJ Webb substance and then you realize that it's going to rain, and then that washes off, of course, if you have no substance, then of course you're going to have a green racetrack. And I know NASCAR wants to make it a lot more exciting. They want to make that groove a lot better. And we saw some, exciting passes, not only in the Xfinity race on Saturday, but also in the Cup race on Sunday. So, NASCAR is basically trying, but then at the same time, like, if something doesn't work, like, I wouldn't even do it a second time.
Right. And I'm sure much like this race was really a testing ground for it. I always say, if it's not broke, don't fix it. For years and years, you do your qualifying, you do your practice, it rains, washes all the rubber off the track. You're forced to reset your car for a green racetrack.
Yeah.
Why change it now? Yes, exciting racing with a top groove that sticks and handles, especially at Charlotte where there's a high rate of speed. But seriously, 2 years ago, I go to the same racetrack for the same race.
Yeah.
And Saturday nights rained out. We have racing on Sunday instead. Bright, sunny day, green racetrack, no rubber on it at all. And nobody, we always have the scanner with the little talking gimmick so we can talk to each other during the race.
Yeah.
Nobody. At worst, at the competition caution, you heard, okay, this is what I feel. This is where she's coming out, or loose in, tight off, or tight in, loose off, whatever. Let's make these adjustments.
Yeah.
So a green racetrack doesn't hurt anybody. I'm thinking, and I said it earlier with the penalties. I think sometimes NASCAR just tinkers too much to the point where eventually nobody's going to know what the hell is going on.
Right.
So, it was a fantastic race, and congratulations to Alex Bowman. Your top 10 was Bowman, Sam Hornish Jr., Ryan Blaney, Austin Dillon, Cole Custer, Daniel Hemrick, Daniel Suarez, Matt Tifft, and Elliott Sadler. Gaughan and Reed, who you just spoke about, battling for that position to get in, 11th and 12th. Brandon Jones, 13th. Ross Chastain, 14th. And Ty Dillon was 15th. We already talked about William Byron, 16th. And then pretty much everybody else. For an Xfinity race, I love the action, but it was pretty nondescript. More exciting Xfinity races I ever saw. Still there?
Yeah. I thought the race was exciting. I mean, I know it was a non-cup driver stuff. I know the screen was just. I know the screen was kind of like just. But anyways, I thought the race was exciting. You did have the non-Xfinity regulars, but there's actually one that I was kind of disappointed on, and that was Justin Allgaier, who came home 33rd, and because of overheating problems in his car. I think it was like 112 laps or something. But other than that, this team will pretty much rebound, and I think with this next round coming up, I think they're going to be the one to watch.
I don't doubt that at all. I'm thinking with Xfinity off this week, and then they come back in Vegas, if I'm not mistaken. Did I get that right?
No, it's actually Kansas.
Kansas. Yeah. You're correct, Kansas.
Just remember, Las Vegas is 2 races next year.
That's right. See, my mind is already moving ahead.
Yeah.
And speaking of moving ahead, the Bank of America 500. I put this and not sound like a schmuck. My daughter wins again.
MTJ.
Martin Truex Jr. MTJ comes in first. I had Kevin Harvick, my guy, had a good day in third.
Yeah.
Sleeper. He came in 9th. As far as I'm concerned, then I'd like to hear your take on the action. Chase Elliott almost wins again.
Yeah.
And when I say that, it's not like he's won before on this level, but he is starting to become the second-place finisher du jour on the circuit. And you think Chase Elliott's going to finally grab that brass ring? Maybe there's a wiggle. Maybe there's a brain fart. Maybe he is mentally psyching himself out, these great runs that he has on all these tracks to a victory.
Yeah. I mean,
and I'm not sure. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I mean, if you look at Chase Elliott, with back-to-back runner-ups, I really think this kid is going to be the one to watch in this next round. And quite frankly, I would say at this point, he's definitely going to win. He's definitely going to win a race at any time now. But the question is going to be where? Because this kid has been pretty good on the mile and a half, and he was good at Dover last week. But I tell you this, I think this kid is definitely going to win a race, and he's going to lock himself into the round of 8 for sure.
Well, I'm not so sure his first win is going to be this season. He will be one, or not the one, but one of the ones to watch come February when we return at Daytona. Some of the surprises, no surprise to see Danica Patrick finish 38th. Ryan Newman dead last with a crash. I like to call the Sunday of Kyle Busch, where I had to listen to most of the races. I was going to a Loki and Jabroni event. Turned around, it was caution on the racetrack. Kyle Busch with it. I'm like, wow, dude, he's just having a really bad time today.
Yeah.
See Clint Boyer and Joey Logano finish in the mid-20s. Kurt Busch in 22nd. Going up a little bit more, Brad Keselowski, who at one time was right up front, tailing Kevin Harvick, finishes 15th.
Yeah.
The rest of them is not a huge surprise to see where they put it out. Biggest surprise, though, was to see Jamie McMurray on it to a whole lot of anything in the last 3 races, come home in 5th.
He's impressive too. And now that he's going to be he's going to Talladega, which he's really good on the restricted play tracks, and I think he's going to be a one to watch come Sunday. But my take on Sunday, and actually the one me, Martin winning the race, but the fact that he started 17th and then you go to stage 1, he doesn't end up finishing in the top 10 in the first stage. And there was actually a little bit of a statistic. They said that the last time that Martin Truex Jr. didn't get any stage points, go back to Daytona in July. That was the last time the 78 did not get any stage points. But the one thing that kind of surprised me the most is that if this team, has like a bad qualifying start, this is going to be a team that's going to rebound and that's going to surge to the front, lead laps and end up winning races. And quite frankly, I mean, I look at this, I look at the finishing order, and another one that kind of surprised me the most was Daniel Suarez ends up coming home in the top 5. It's a good run for him. And then, of course, another guy, Kyle Larson. I mean, he had that damage with Kurt Busch, later on, like near the end of the race. But, there was a point where I guess his crew chief said, how is my left rear fender? And they said, if it's not smoking, then I think it would be drivable and stuff.
Yeah, I think he got some bad advice. In the early stages of the race, I thought Kyle Larson, as usual, had a rocket up underneath him. Harvick obviously had the car to beat for 200 and change laps. It wasn't so much a bad pit stop as it was he did have a semi, but he came back out in first. He's leading, but Martin Truex threw that hook out. He was reeling him in.
Yeah.
There was a point during the radio feed, and I don't know how it looked on television because, again, I was driving, where they said, Kevin Harvick has broken away from the field by 5 seconds. Truex, and he's chasing him down.
Yeah.
Behind Truex, Chase Elliott has been making up 0.2 of a lap on Martin Truex each time by. So these 3 guys were strong. For my money, it wouldn't have hurt my feelings if Chase Elliott won the race. It certainly doesn't hurt my feelings that Martin Truex won the race. And I'm not going to complain about my guy coming home in third. I'm having a real problem seeing anyone else but the 78 or the 42, and I say it every week. People can throw names like Kyle Busch or Denny Hamlin or Kevin Harvick into that mix. It's going to be great to have 2 other cars chasing Truex and Larson for the championship.
I think so. And
they're going to be one and – go ahead.
Yeah, and I think probably the one guy that's going to have to chase, those 2 guys besides Kyle Busch is definitely going to be Harvick because, he ends up finishing third on Sunday. And then, of course, he finished third at Chicago a few weeks ago. And I think this is probably the one team that, you're going to have to keep your eye on because even though that the Ford team hasn't had a really good regular season, even though they got the 1 win at Sonoma back in June or so forth, I really think this team could make a run at those 2 guys and, quite possibly, can lock himself into the final 4 this weekend. I mean, Harvick's really good on the restrictor plate tracks, and then, you go to the mile and a halfs, and the Ford team is really good there, and you got Phoenix, which is Harvick's favorite racetrack. So I would probably say that, if I'm Harvick and, if I go to, like, the next round, I would probably say Phoenix would have to be a strong suit, if he wants to go to the Final 4.
And if you forget for a minute, let's forget that the 4 guys who were bumped out of the round of 16 had some really terrible luck underneath them. I'm looking at the first 3 races. Same top 4, actually, as this race. Truex, Elliott, New Hampshire. 36th. I remember that. He had some big problems that race. Banged up pretty good. Here we go to Dover. Dun, dun, a 17th place finish in Dover. So to have a 3rd place finish here, he snuck his way, in my opinion, to the round of 12. Now he's trying to make that big push to move ahead to the round of 8, and especially at a racetrack like Talladega where he has won before. For him, I don't want to say it's a must-win situation. He must finish in the top 5 going forward each and every time out, if not try to bring home that checkered flag. Another guy who you had a comment?
No, I would say so, yeah.
Another guy who needs to have that same consistency, because looking back at those same 3 races, and I'm just going to throw, without you even looking, I want to see if you can see who I'm talking about. Chicago.
Okay.
14th in New Hampshire. third in Dover. Runs. And then you go to Charlotte, another 7th place finish, and need to do to cement himself aside. Again, winning, we all know winning you're in. He's not having the best runs, but he's making enough of these runs. He's not been dominant in any race to his last win. To be honest, he did real good.
Yeah.
But going back to Bristol, where Jimmy Johnson has just been a non-factor. You know, it's great to finish 7th. It's great to finish 11th. It's great to have these nice runs, but nice runs aren't going to move you into that round of 4. Here, 19th place finish. See here, Watkins Glen, I think he had a pretty terrible run. And I mean, obviously, these are all non-chase races. Races, as they call them now. To Pocono, where Jimmy Johnson finished 35th. And it's great to have these fantastic runs of 7th, 11th, 3rd, whatever, if you're Chase Elliott. But you are 7-time champion Jimmy Johnson. There's a lot more expected of him, and I don't think he or his team, there's got to be a disconnect, because he is not the Jimmy Johnson in capital letters that either we love or we hate. I'm watching.
Yeah.
Where do you think he needs to go from here? Because everybody knows you win and you're in.
Right. I mean, you know, I have been looking at Jimmy Johnson's performance this year, and I can pretty much say that, you know, I would say that he's probably not posting, like, you know, championship-like numbers, but, you know, I mean, given the fact that, you know, he has finished in the top 10, and, you know, sometimes he's had some good runs in the last couple weeks, but I just look at this team, and I just don't think they're going to be able to this year, because, you know, the way that this team is running, I don't even see the 4. I mean, they could probably make it into the next round based on points, you know, depending on how they do in the next 2 races. But the way that this team is running, I mean, I would just say that it's incapable enough of winning the championship, because, you know, you go to last year, of course it was, I mean, of course everybody didn't really pick them to win the championship, but look what they did. You know, they ended up winning 2 races in one of the rounds, and then of course you go to Homestead, you had to win the race and stuff. And then pretty much this year, you know, they were so dominant in the spring, but then in the summer they were kind of way off. Then they make it into the playoffs, and they said, okay, now we need to start running better. So they've had a few good runs, but, you know, like I said, you know, I watched the race on Sunday, the top 10, but they just didn't seem, you know, the car that was capable enough to win. And then, of course, you had that mishap pit stop, you know, near the end and stuff. But I look at Johnson right now, and, you know, I mean, do I think he can make it to the Final 4? I mean, I don't know. I mean, if he can have some really good runs within the next couple weeks, I mean, you know, then I'll start talking, you know, that this team could be capable enough, you know, to win the championship. But as of right now, I just don't see them, you know, winning their 8th championship this season.
Same here. And it's, again, I'm not a Jimmy Johnson fan by any stretch of the imagination. I've made that widely and publicly clear. But it's a better playoff with him, and with him being a factor, than it is to just watch a race and see his name on the crawler every few laps, because you want to beat the best when he's at his best, and I haven't seen Jimmy Johnson at his best all season long.
Yeah.
Now, moving forward from that, we did talk about the Sunday of Kyle Busch. I did not quite see what started it all, but the man brought out 4 cautions on his own for debris, etc., so forth. What went wrong for Kyle Busch this weekend?
So the first one came out when he spun on lap 137. He kind of slid and hit the wall coming into turn 3. So then what was actually kind of the odd part was, I guess Kyle had a crush panel, which that pretty much caused the car to have excessive heat. And then not to mention he had carbon monoxide leaking inside the car, which is not really the best thing there is. But honestly, I tell you this, Kyle pretty much managed to manhandle that car on Sunday. Even though he brought it home in 29th, with a damaged race car, after the race, you could pretty much tell that he was exhausted because right after he got out of his car, he was on the AstroTurf, where that new road course is going to be, like where the Roval is for next season. So then the safety guys came in, they asked if he was all right. And, 10 minutes later, he comes off the ground, then he was taken to the infield care center and then was given the IV fluids and oxygen after that. But anytime, like when you have excessive heat inside the car and, and you're basically in that car and it's like 120, maybe 130 inside, I mean, and for those people that say like, oh, these people aren't athletes, I mean, I would just say be inside a race car for like 4 hours and like 90-degree heat and see what you think. Because I think these guys are athletes. I mean, look what happened at Indianapolis in July. Casey Kane, not only he ends up winning the race, but after that he was exhausted as well because, the excessive heat that was at Indy, that pretty much, made him a little bit fatigued. But then yet again, like, these drivers, have to stay hydrated, and they have to drink plenty of fluids for like every race because, because they're inside that car for about 4 hours and, and they're basically not moving the whole entire time. But I think with Kyle Busch's performance on Sunday, I mean, he had to manhandle it, which wasn't really easy. But, even though he didn't have a good finish, I still think, that team is going to be another one that's going to be the one to watch.
Oh, without question. We've always said that. I know our Final Fours differ slightly, but we both agree on Truex, Larson, Kyle Busch, and our fourth is, well, sideways from there. Let's get the point breakdown for the two series that raced this weekend before we move on to talk about this weekend's races. If my computer would decide to catch up to me here. We can start with the Cup since my phone is up and running. One of the things I wanted to mention about Jimmy Johnson before we close it out, the difference between him in 7th and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in 12th is only 17 points.
Yeah.
Ricky Stenhouse, again, he could possibly win this weekend. He's already collected a win at Talladega. Jimmy Johnson could have another 18th place run and spot, especially if the McMurrays, the Kenseths, the Keselowskis, and the Blaney's can all come up this weekend and have a big run. And I don't wish ill on him unless he's beating Harvick. I will play off with him in it than without it.
Yeah.
So let's look at the Cup standings real quick in the playoffs. Again, Truex is the leader. Second, Kyle Larson. He is 34 points back. Take that in for a minute, guys. 4 points back of the leader.
Yeah.
It's not like, again, this isn't like old Cup racing where Martin Truex is going to run away with this. Truex has already punched his card to the next round. Larson, the difference between Larson and Jimmy Johnson was only 22 points.
Yeah.
To 7th. Again, bad fortune can reach anybody. Kevin Harvick is in 3rd, 37 points out. 47 points out. Denny Hamlin 5th, 50 points out. Kyle Busch is 6th, 51 points out. That's kind of appropriate. 51 for the Kyle Busch. Jimmy Johnson, 7th, 55 points back. 8th, Jamie McMurray, 62 points back. Matt Kenseth, 9th, 63 points back. Brad Keselowski, 10th, 64 points back. So only 2 points separates 8th to 10th. Throw another 3 points on for Ryan Blaney in 11th. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in 12th in that last spot, 72 points back. Not a bad class right there overall.
I think it's a whoops.
Go ahead.
All right. Yeah, I think it was I think if you look at this, if you look at the points in the top 12 for this round, and you go to Talladega this weekend, I mean, let's face it, the points are just going to shuffle like back and forth like all day on Sunday, depending on who's running and whatsoever. But I would say that if I'm Ricky Stenhouse Jr. right now, and and I'm 12th in the points, so he definitely needs to win, to make it into the next round because this team has been capable enough to win on the super speedways this season. So I would say that if Stenhouse doesn't win on Sunday, I don't see him making it into the next round because, I've looked at their results this year. his 1.5-mile program, could do a little bit of work, but other than that, like, this team, has been lucky, but like I said, if they don't make it, if they don't win Talladega this weekend, I don't see them making it into the next round.
And I can understand that. And when you consider, like we just spoke about, the differences between, say, some of these cars that are close within 3 points, like Hamlin, Busch, and Johnson. Consider this for a moment. Kyle Larson is 34 points back. Yep. The difference between Kyle Larson and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. right now is only 38 points. Now, take into account, say Ricky Stenhouse were to win this weekend's race, and some tragedy befell Kyle Larson where he finished dead last. Down, man.
Yeah.
So we're going to look real quick at the Xfinity round of 8. These are the numbers. William Byron is in first. He is the leader. Justin Allgaier second, 3 points back. This is going to be an exciting playoff to watch coming down the wire, especially when your first three are only separated by 6 points. Elliott Sadler is in third, 6 points back. Moves down to Daniel Hemrick in fourth, 17 points back. Cole Custer, fifth, 19 points back. Brennan Poole is sixth, 20 points back. Ryan Reed, 21 points back in seventh. And Matt Tifft, eighth, 22 points back. Matt Tifft, in my opinion, let me get from last week. I know I had Matt Tifft as a sleeper. I know being a playoff guy as a sleeper. But we spoke on it a couple of weeks ago. He's not really shining the way you want a playoff driver to shine.
Yeah, I mean, I look at his stats right now. I mean, he only has like 2 top 5s and 10 top 10s. I mean, given the fact that he's in good equipment, like Joe Gibbs Racing. I mean, I just don't know if I could see this team making it into the round of 4 because they've been kind of like average, this season. So if you look at his average finish, it's only like 14.3. But other than that, I think he was lucky to make it into the next round because he had problems on the race on Saturday because I guess he had a loose wheel. And then, of course, penalty is like, if you have a loose wheel, then, talent in the longest line whatsoever. But, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I look at Tifft and, I would say that if he wins at one of the 1.5 tracks, which,
Uh-oh. And I'm frozen. Hello?
So, yeah.
There you are. I lost you for a second there.
Okay.
I heard we had comments on the YouTube machine. I'm trying to find them now. Here we go. Hi, Daddy. Well, at least we have one viewer live right now. Hi, Emma. Why aren't you in bed? It's 8:52.
That is funny.
Anyway, thank you so much for commenting, Corey, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
But I lost you there for a second. I know we were just talking about Matt Tifft.
Yeah.
I lost you for a minute, so I didn't hear what you said. I'm just asking you maybe to repeat it.
Yeah, I'd probably say that, if Tifft can win at one of the 1.5 racetracks, which the Gibbs guys have been really successful on, like Kyle Busch and Suarez and Eric Jones, I think this kid could probably lock himself into the Final Four. I mean, you just never know what this playoff is going to bring, like in all 3 series whatsoever. But, I think Tifft is definitely going to be the sleeper, in my opinion.
Okay. Well, now we move ahead. We have 2 races this weekend at Talladega. First, we have Saturday at 1 o'clock. I don't know who Fred is, but I wish I knew him because it's the Fred's 250, powered by Coca-Cola. I looked through the list earlier. It's most of your truck regulars, very few walks of life coming into this race. So it's going to be a true 100% Craftsman Truck Series race with Craftsman Truck Series competitors. I've not watched a lot of truck racing on the bigger tracks like Daytona or Talladega, so when I make my picks, I just scroll down the list, stop, boom, that's who I picked. So my picks are going to be as uneducated as anything. So I'll let you start.
So I was actually doing a little bit of research on this the last few days, and there's going to be 2 that you're going to have to watch out for on Saturday. and those are going to be the two GMS drivers of Johnny Sauter and Kaz Grala. So the reason why I say this, go back to the race at Daytona in February. Those were the only two trucks that were dominating in that race that night. And then, of course, Johnny Sauter ended up winning the first two stage points. And then, he was in the battle, to win the race. I think he was in like the top 10 or something. He was near the front, and then he got collected in that big crash. Then you got Kaz Grala, who ended up winning the race that night. So this was kind of my little theory about this. So if I would have had to pick one, I would definitely have to say Kaz Grala, because if he ended up winning a Daytona back in February, I think he has a really good shot at winning a Talladega on Saturday. Because if this kid knows how to drive on the restrictor plate tracks, I think he can get it done. And then, of course, my sleeper, I would definitely have to go with Chase Briscoe, because he had an okay race on Saturday, the last couple of weeks ago at Las Vegas, but he's going to be another one that's going to have to try to win the race, to make himself into the next round. Because if you look at the race at Talladega on Saturday, keep this in mind, only two drivers are going to get eliminated after Saturday and the six move on. So it's going to be very interesting to see how everyone's all going to play out, this weekend. And like I said, points are going to teeter, they're going to like flip-flop back and forth throughout the whole entire race, depending on where these guys are going to be running. But I would have to say both the GMS drivers are going to be the ones to watch this weekend.
Okay. Well, again, having not watched the Truck Series that much, and Gregorius just went yard again, 2-0 Yankees. Sorry, I'm not used to this year. I'm having fun. My two picks went like this. My lock is Ryan Truex. Why? Because he is the brother of Martin Truex. And my sleeper is Kaz Grala, because I'd like to see him do well. And I did a little research, so I know he did well earlier in the season at a large track at Daytona. So those are my picks, completely off the cuff. I just scrolled down the entry list and went, boom, okay, Ryan Truex, and boom, Kaz Grala. So most exciting race, in my opinion, on the circuit at any given point in time are the two races at Talladega on the Cup Series. It's always fast. It's always furious. It's always amazing. And it's always a surprise, because you can employ the get out in front, win the stages racing that we have now, or you can employ the Jimmy Johnson, Kevin Harvick, Matt Kenseth route, fall to the back, save your energy, save your gas, run in a pack, and then turn on the afterburner with 20, 30 laps to go and walk away with the victory. The problem with that is always lately, the last 50 laps is when you get the big one. Strategy like Kenseth did a few years ago and had the absolute car to beat, and he got tied up in the 15-car wreck. You've just blown your chances. Which route would you like to see the eventual winner of this race take?
So there's a lot of scenarios that could happen at Talladega and Daytona. And, I look at this weekend, let's face it, everybody's going to want to go for the win. But if you look at the stage points that NASCAR introduced this year, the first two stages, everybody's going to want to finish in the top 10 to get those stage points, because if you don't finish in the top 10, there's a possibility that you won't be able to make it into the next round, depending on what happens at Kansas and so forth. But I've always seen all these restrictor plate races within the last couple of years. Early in the race, you'll see some guys drop to the back because they don't want to get caught up in the big wreck and stuff. And there has been times where there has been a wreck and the driver has been slowing down, and then next thing you know, he gets hit from behind because next thing you know, he starts to check up and stuff. So there's a lot of scenarios that could happen this weekend. I mean, there's another one that let's say you're running second, and you want to try and make a move on the outside, hoping that somebody goes with you. Next thing you know, boom, you go to the outside, and then everyone starts to go on the bottom, starts passing you. So you could basically go from second all the way to 25th in one lap, because you're going to lose the lead lap. And then, of course, you got the big wreck. There's going to be, that point where, the big wreck's going to cause by some guy that wasn't even in his own doing. And then, pretty much with 10 laps to go, or 20 laps ago, that's when everybody's going to go for it, because even though it's not an elimination race this year, even though it's the second to last race of the elimination race, I still think, you're going to see some guys, that are going to go for it. And then, of course, you're going to see one guy that's going to end up winning, advance himself to the next round, and then everyone else is going to have to be in that must-win situation at Kansas next Sunday. But I would have to say that, you know, you're going to see a lot of crazy things at Talladega this weekend. You know, not only do you have the elimination race on Saturday, but you have the second-to-last race in the elimination race on Sunday. So it's interesting to see how this is going to play out.
Okay. And bringing up the stage racing, of course, whoever is going to win this race, and I have my picks ready to go, you're going to laugh at the sleeper. I have a feeling you're going to really like the sleeper.
Okay.
What you're looking at is you have to be consistent. Martin Truex and Kyle Larson has been the poster children all year for the importance of the stage points. Now, if you take stage one and stage two like Harvick did this weekend, and then you fall back a little bit, it doesn't hurt you as much because you've already picked up those extra points to move forward next round. If you drop back and you employ the Harvick, Kenseth, Johnson strategy of hang back, conserve your energy, conserve your gas, save it for the end, be the closer, be the knockout artist, and you get caught cars that is 4 wide and you can't get by, you've screwed yourself. You get caught up in the big one, somebody else has just screwed you. Or if you wait too late to pull that trigger, you've screwed yourself. I think if you get up front, try to keep yourself up front. I know that's weird to hear from a guy like me who loves that hang back notion and your friends are elbowing you, your guy's in 37th. Really watch where he's going to be on the last lap.
Yeah.
And they all don't get it. Well, how do you do that? A, played the draft correctly. B, conserved energy, conserved tires, conserved fuel. And he's got just a little bit more than everybody else. He hasn't beaten his car to death like the guys who have been battling the top 5 all day. So for me, get out front, stay out front. Use that clean air to your advantage. Do not worry about the draft. Do not worry about the train going on behind you. One of the things I noticed at the last Talladega race was there's a really definitive low line and a really definitive high line, whereas back in the day, the low line in the middle were the places to be. High was the only place you could go to pass. Now what I'm watching, especially in the last Talladega race and in the last few prior, is the top and the bottom are the places everybody wants to be. And if you get caught in the middle, that's when you start dropping backward like a stone, and it doesn't help your chances out. So get out front, stay out front, guys. If any of you NASCAR guys are watching, just get out front, stay out front. Use the clean air to your advantage. If you can find a partner to run with, by all means, run with him. But whatever you do, do not employ the old school strategy of drop back and save it, because you're going to find yourself in a world of hurt, or you may just find yourself in the unenviable position of not being able to climb back up to the front. Who are your picks for this weekend, Corey?
So I've also done a lot of thinking about this one, but so my favorite this weekend definitely has to be Dale Earnhardt Jr. because let's face it, I mean, the man has done really successful at Daytona and Talladega the last couple of years. You go back to the race in May, could have had a shot to win the race if he hadn't had that flat tire or whatever it was, like contention. That, I mean, what a good story for the weekend for Dale Earnhardt Jr. to win on Sunday. And not to mention, I guess the governor of Alabama pretty much declared Sunday Dale Jr. Day, which that would be pretty awesome. And, you know, that. My sleeper pick, you might laugh at the guy. It's not going to be a top team or whatever it is, but my sleeper pick is going to have to be David Reagan. The reason why I'm picking him, you know, even though he's running for Front Row Motorsports and, you know, it's kind of like a top 25 team whatsoever, just remember, David Reagan is no stranger, you know, on the super speedways, because you go to his statistics. He ended up winning the July race at Daytona in 2011 when he was driving for Jack Roush. And then the last time he ended up winning at Talladega was when he won back in 2013 when he was driving for the Front Row Motorsports guys. And that was when his then teammate, David Gilliland, ended up finishing second. Then you go to the July race at Daytona. Could have had a shot to win. You know, he finished in the top 10, top 5 whatsoever. But I really think, you know, not only like you're going to see these guys, you know, in the playoffs, you know, make a run to the front, but let me actually give you this comment. So you're actually going to see some guys that you never seen like up in the top 10 before. You know, you'll see some guys that are in like the top 20, like top 25, and, you know, and you'll probably ask yourself, like, where did this guy come from? Like, you know, I've never seen him before. So that's another statistic that could happen on the super speedways. You know, you'll see those guys that are in the top 20 or in the top 25, you know, that have not run up, you know, like a top 5, top 10 finish. And, you know, that's what I really love about super speedway racing, is that you just never know like what's going to happen, and you never know like who's going to finish where. So I think it's going to be exciting.
I agree with you. I'm kind of going safe this week. If I'm going to pick a lock for this week, it's going to be the guy who has won at both Daytona and Talladega this season. I'm picking Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Has been running pretty well throughout the season, made his way in with the 2 wins, and he hasn't really disappointed too much. He hasn't pulled a Chris Buescher. He hasn't pulled an AJ Allmendinger. You know, I'm making the playoffs, and that's as far as it is. I have this on my record now. Stenhouse is posed to make a charge to go forward. The sleeper pick, I'm going to go the Vegas route. I'm taking the field.
Okay.
I'm taking the other. My sleeper is the other 39.
Okay.
Because, again, it's one of those races where you can pick a winner all day long.
Yeah.
And they may or may not do well. Again, Talladega is the most unpredictable track on the circuit without question. But I couldn't see myself. I looked at Stenhouse and I said, you know, yeah, I can pick him. He's doing really great this season. That team is a super speedway monster this season. If he's not winning it, and then you go to the mile and a half, he's doing okay. But, man, on those 2 mile or more, he's showing his stuff.
Yeah.
But, again, like you said, we could see a first-time winner this weekend. We could see Matt DiBenedetto or Cole Witt, or pick your poison. We could see Joey Logano make his triumphant return to victory lane.
Yeah.
We could see easily Dale Earnhardt Jr. come away on Dale Earnhardt Jr. Day in the state of Alabama and win the race. And wouldn't that be great for Dale Earnhardt Jr. fans around the world to have him take that track, like you said, where he has been tremendously successful, and walk away holding that trophy? That would be so awesome. And I wanted to point something out to you that I just saw on NASCAR.com earlier, and I wrote myself a note to bring it up. So far this season, in case you didn't know, Martin Truex has led 1,977 laps.
Amazing.
So that's 23 laps away from hitting 2,000. If he does that, he's going to become only the 12th driver in the modern era from 1972 to present. Let's call it the Jabroni era, because I was born in 72.
Yeah.
Let me read off some of the names that have led 2,000 laps. The other 11 drivers: Dale Jarrett, Jimmy Johnson, David Pearson, Bobby Allison, Jeff Gordon, Rusty Wallace, Richard Petty, Dale Earnhardt, Darrell Waltrip, and Cale Yarborough. Hall of Fame names on that list. All of them. All of them. And Martin Truex is 23 laps away from joining that very elite squad. Consider every year how many drivers fire up an engine, run a full circuit, and maybe don't lead 1,000 laps in their career. This guy is about to do it for the season. And I don't know, we didn't say how many times each of these guys have done it. But, again, Hall of Fame names. Okay, actually it does. Dale Jarrett led 2,083 laps in 97. Jimmy Johnson, 2,238 laps in 2009. David Pearson, 2,658 laps in 73. Harvick has led 2,000 laps in a season twice. The most was in 2015 with 2,294. Bobby Allison did it twice. The most in a season, get this, 4,343 laps in 1972.
Wow.
Jeff Gordon has done it 3 times, the most being 2,610 in 1995. Rusty Wallace has done it 3 times. The most was 2,860 in 1993. Petty's done it twice. The most was 3,158 in 1975. Dale Earnhardt Sr. did it 4 times. His best was 3,357 in 1987. Waltrip did it 7 times, the most being 3,028 in 1982. did it 7 times, the most being 3,587 in 1978. That's an amazing feat. And there's no doubt in my mind, any of us who have watched this season as closely as we have, Martin Truex could fall asleep in the middle of the race and lead 50 laps.
Yeah.
Does he do it this weekend? Does he break that 2,000 this weekend, or are we going to have to wait another week?
I mean, he could possibly do it. I mean, at Talladega, the lead's going to change like almost like constantly. So I wouldn't probably say this weekend, but I would say next weekend when the guys are on the 1.5-mile racetrack, I think that's going to be his best possibility because let's face it, the 78 team has just been so dominant whenever it comes to the 1.5 miles, and I really think that he's not only like this year, but with many more years to come, and I think this is just basically his best season, out of his career.
Absolutely, and it shows each and every race. This being the second race of the round of 12 and Kansas being the last race of this particular round, is there anyone you see in danger, any real danger of falling out between where they have to fight for their life going into Kansas next week?
So I would have to say that, whoever comes out of Talladega unscathed is going to be pretty lucky. But, I think, the points are going to change dramatically, like throughout the whole entire race. And I would probably say, if Stenhouse doesn't have a good finish at Talladega, I mean, he's going to be one of those guys that's going to be in that must-win situation mode. And then, I look at guys like Ryan Blaney and Keselowski. I mean, those guys are going to be the ones that are going to be must-win, if they don't have a good finish at Talladega. But I would just have to say, after the Talladega race on Sunday, I'll pretty much determine, who's going to be a must-win situation and who's going to be safe, in the next round.
All right. Well, having said that, we have reached the end of another C&J Speedway review. Do you have anything you'd like to pimp, plug, or otherwise beg people to do?
So I actually posted up my Instagram account for NASCAR IndyCar Central, and I think I messed up the logo just a little bit. So pretty much my Twitter account, you can go to NASCAR Indy. I post up news results and standings and more news articles, and then of course my website nascarindy.org. And then I also want to give a shout out on Twitter to @love_Matt D. If you're watching this right now, I want you to say, I just want to say hello. And actually me and him, we were talking last night, and I actually told him about our show, and just take a good look at it and see what you think. But yeah, so @love_Matt D from Idaho, just want to say hello. And if you ended up watching the show tonight, give us your reaction and see what you thought. And so if you look at it, his favorite teams are the 32, 43, 2, 48, 27, Corey LaJoie in the Cup Series. And then Xfinity, he has 5, 9, 11, 39, 51, Ben Kennedy, Tommy Joe Martins. And then the Truck Series, he has the 98, Timothy Peters, and Tagliani.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Much appreciated. Throw us a subscribe on the YouTube channel. Go like the Facebook page. Quick question for you before we go off. Are you a fan of Star Wars?
I have a couple friends of mine that like that. I mean, I wasn't really a fan when I was growing up, but I think it's pretty cool though. I mean, I have to admit.
All right. Well, have I got a deal for you, your friends, or anybody watching this show? Star Wars is coming out, and the tickets are now on sale. If you go to LokiandJabroni.com and click our Fandango link, use our link, and for a limited time, you get a free poster with your movie ticket purchase. So if you're a Star Wars freak or geek, you're looking forward to seeing The Last Jedi, not only will you get your tickets early through www.lokiandjabroni.com by clicking our Fandango link, it's right at the top of the page, you're going to get a free poster out of the deal. Who doesn't like free stuff? I know I do.
Yeah.
So look into that. Tell your friends, anybody watching this, if you know anybody who's excited about watching Star Wars, that's the place to go. The best part about that is every time you use one of our links, whether it's Amazon, Fandango, Mars Hydro, they don't charge you anything extra. They kick back a little bit to Focus Network to help the Loki and Jabroni Show and to help C&J Speedway Review, so we can bring you better quality, better content, better everything on a weekly basis, because we're charging you the greatest price of all for these shows, which is Nothing.
Yeah.
So, Corey, once again, great time. I'm looking forward to talking about next week. I will be in front of the tube for both races this weekend. And I'm looking forward to seeing the trucks on a super speedway for the first time in a long time.
It's going to be a lot of fun, I can tell you that much. And I tell you what, when you get the trucks on the super speedways, it's going to be a lot of fun watching those guys racing at like 180, 190 miles an hour. But what's actually going to be fun about it is, the trucks are going to be slipping and sliding like everywhere. And, and of course, like in the Xfinity and the truck series, like you have like that no pushing rule, whatever it is. Like, you can basically push them, but you can't lock bumpers. And I really don't kind of like that rule, but if they want to make the pack a lot closer, I think it's a good idea. But yeah, I think the trucks and the Cup guys this weekend, it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward.
Absolutely. Well, Corey, make sure you don't get too drunk this weekend because I know you tipped the bottle pretty hard. Oh wait, that's me. Anyway, looking forward to it. I always love seeing Corey pop up on the page when I'm watching the race and I go to update something. He's already there. So if you want to see how fast this guy's fingers are, go like the Facebook page, subscribe to the show on YouTube, tell your friends, and thank you to Mr. Idaho for, chiming in, and hopefully you enjoyed the show.
All right.
All right, good night, guys.
Good night.